I hope you didn't have too many problems with those questions. I know there are only 4 questions, but I'm willing to bet it took you longer than usual to do those 4 questions compared to the 5 questions that I normally ask you to do in other lessons. And that's why I only gave you 4 questions, because I get the idea it would take you a longer period of time. But let's go through those answers. So we've got this first question here. When you meet with the policeman, make sure that you bring any evidence you have. This might include things like photos, videos, and other documents. Also, please bring with you all correspondence with the other party. If we break that down into a list, we do a couple of things. First of all, we present the information in a much more accessible way. Secondly, we create a list from 2 sentences. In the original, we've got the information that we need to think about spread across sentences, and that doesn't help the reader. If we put everything in one list, then the reader is much less chance of the reader forgetting to do something. Okay, for question number 2, on your CV you will have to include things like your work history and how many qualifications you have. There's no need to include things like your interests and hobbies, that's not necessary, nor is any other non-important information. So what we've got here is a sentence which is written pretty much as someone would speak. And when we're writing, that's perhaps not the best thing to do for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're including information that we don't need to communicate, and we could potentially be creating complicated sentence structures. So if we list things instead, on your CV you will have to include your work history and your qualifications. Please don't include your interests and hobbies or any other non-important information. This breaks it down very simply. What you have to include, what you don't have to include. It cuts out all of the unnecessary language, very clear communication for the reader to react to. Okay, for question number 3, okay, so your agenda today includes a 7:30 meeting with a new client, and that's followed by a 8:30 presentation. After that, you've got a lunch at noon with our biggest client. So we've got lots of things going on, and the sentences there are communicating plenty of activity. Very easy to read quickly, very easy to forget an important detail. But if we put it in a list, then it becomes a lot more memorable. Agenda for today, 7:30 meeting a new client, 8:30 team presentation, 12 o'clock lunch with our biggest client. And of course, here, as you can see, I've unified the format for the time. In the original, I've got 7:30, then 8:30, and then noon. And here, I've just using the same format of time, so it's very easy to see, very easy to remember. And lastly, for question number 4, if we don't get a positive decision, we will have to meet quickly to discuss next steps and make a decision within 14 days. If we get a positive decision, we'll have to tell our business partners and prepare for the next steps of the plan. Lots of things going on, as you'll very commonly have when you're communicating information. Let's think straight away. Lots of things happening. Let's think about a list. And if we do that, we'll get a list like this. If we don't get a positive decision, we will have to do this, do that. If we get a positive decision, we'll have to do this, do that. Okay? Here, the separation of ideas, what we have to do, what we don't have to do, very important. We've got conditionals, if. So let's make sure that people can see those conditionals. We can see that, and it's very clear to us what are our next steps. When we have a look at the original block of text, it is possible to get lost in that block of information.